First contact. Dr. Nathan Rhodes never expected his quiet research station in the Norwegian fjords to become the site of humanity's most significant encounter. The aurora borealis shimmered above as usual that night, but something else caught his eye, a streak of light that didn't belong among the ethereal green waves. Through his observatory's telescope, Nathan tracked the object's descent. It wasn't a meteor. Its trajectory was too controlled, too deliberate. Within minutes, his instruments detected the impact just 3 kilometers from the station. Despite the late hour and bitter cold, he knew this couldn't wait until morning. The snow crunched under his boots as he made his way to the crash site, following the coordinates on his tablet. His breath frosted in the air, creating small clouds that dispersed in the wind. The object had carved a clean furrow through the snow, ending in a small crater that glowed with an odd, purple luminescence. What he found wasn't a satellite or space debris, it was an escape pod, its surface adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. As Nathan approached, a section of the pod became transparent, revealing its occupant. His heart nearly stopped. Inside lay a humanoid figure, but clearly not human. Its skin had a crystalline quality, refracting light like thousands of tiny prisms. Long, silvery hair floated around its face as if suspended in liquid. Most striking were its eyes. When they opened, they revealed irises that shifted colors like oil on water. The being spoke, not in words, but in pulses of light that emanated from patterns on its skin. Nathan's research in bioluminescent communications suddenly found practical application. He recognized patterns similar to those produced by deep-sea creatures. This was an attempt at communication. Using his tablet to analyze the light patterns, Nathan worked through the night to establish basic communication. He learned the being's name was Lysandra, a diplomatic envoy from a civilization called the Lumini. She had fled her ship during an attack, though she couldn't yet explain by whom or why. As dawn approached, Nathan faced a decision. Protocol dictated he should report this to authorities immediately, but something in Lysandra's desperate light patterns suggested urgency and danger. She had chosen this remote location deliberately, seeking help while avoiding detection. "I understand you're afraid," Nathan said, using his tablet to convert his words into light patterns. "I won't report this yet, but I need to know, are you bringing danger to Earth?" Lysandra's response came in careful pulses. "The danger is already here. I came to warn you." Over the next few hours, as they took shelter in Nathan's research station, Lysandra began to explain. Her people had discovered a network of ancient artifacts scattered throughout the galaxy, left by a long-vanished civilization. These artifacts were more than mere relics. They were parts of a vast machine, one that could either protect or destroy entire solar systems. One such artifact lay hidden beneath Earth's oceans, its energy signature masked by the planet's magnetic field. Another faction had discovered this and was coming to claim it, caring nothing for the impact their actions might have on Earth's population. "Why trust me with this?" Nathan asked, fascinated by the way Lysandra's skin rippled with colors as she formulated her response. "Because," her lights pulsed, "your work on bioluminescent communication showed me you could understand us. Your species is young, but you seek to understand rather than control. We need that perspective now more than ever." As Nathan processed this information, his monitors began picking up unusual readings from the upper atmosphere. Something large had entered Earth's orbit, something that shouldn't be there. Lysandra's skin flashed in alarm. "They followed me," she pulsed. "We have less time than I thought." Nathan looked at the strange being who had literally dropped into his life, then at the concerning readings on his screens. His quiet research station was about to become ground zero for a conflict that could determine Earth's fate. And somehow, he knew his understanding of bioluminescent communication was just the beginning of what would be needed to face what was coming. Breaking barriers. The morning sun cast long shadows across Nathan's research station as he and Lysandra pored over his oceanographic data. Her crystalline form caught the light, sending rainbow refractions dancing across the walls. They had been working non-stop since detecting the unknown vessel in Earth's orbit, searching for patterns that might reveal the location of the ancient artifact. These thermal anomalies, Lysandra indicated with a pulse of blue light, they're not natural. They're energy signatures from the artifact's shielding system. Her light patterns had grown steadier as they worked together, making communication easier. Nathan's translation software was learning, adapting to her unique dialect of luminescent language. Nathan stroked his beard thoughtfully, studying the underwater temperature maps. They align perfectly with the deep-sea bioluminescent colonies I've been studying. That's why no one noticed before the artifact's energy signature mimics natural phenomena. Their work was interrupted by an urgent alert from Nathan's security system. "Multiple vehicles approaching," the automated voice announced. "Norwegian military signatures detected." Lysandra's skin flashed with anxiety, her colors shifting rapidly to deep purples and reds. "They can't find me here," her lights pulsed frantically. "The ones hunting me have infiltrators in many Earth governments. We don't know who to trust." Nathan made a quick decision. The station has a hidden research chamber beneath the main lab. It's shielded to prevent interference with sensitive experiments. They won't detect you there. Just as they secured Lysandro in the underground chamber, a convoy of military vehicles pulled up outside. Nathan took a deep breath, straightened his jacket, and went to meet them. Captain Ingrid Thorson led the delegation, her stern expression matching the harsh landscape around them. "Dr. Rhodes, we detected an unusual atmospheric entry last night, followed by significant energy readings from your station. Care to explain?" Nathan had prepared for this. "A meteorite landed nearby. I've been studying its unusual electromagnetic properties. Would you like to see my preliminary findings?" He pulled up carefully edited data on his tablet, showing only the most mundane readings. Captain Thorson's eyes narrowed. "A meteorite that changed course multiple times during descent. Our tracking systems marked it as artificial in origin. The aurora's electromagnetic field can cause unusual trajectories," Nathan countered smoothly. "I'd be happy to share my research on similar phenomena." The captain didn't look convinced, but she also couldn't dispute his expertise in his own field. After a thorough but ultimately fruitless search of the station, she left with a warning. "We'll be monitoring this area closely, Dr. Rhodes. Any unusual activity will bring us back immediately." Once they were gone, Nathan returned to the underground chamber. He found Lysandra studying his collection of marine biology texts, her skin glowing with fascination. "Your oceans," she pulsed softly, "they're so similar to my homeworld. We evolved in liquid too, but ours was charged with bioluminescent particles. That's why we communicate through light." Nathan sat beside her, watching the patterns flow across her crystalline skin. "Tell me about your world," he said, genuinely curious. "How did your people discover the artifacts?" As Lysandra shared her story, Nathan learned of a civilization that had developed along dramatically different lines than humanity. The Lumini had built their society on principles of harmony and shared consciousness, using their natural ability to communicate through light to create vast networks of shared knowledge. "But then we found the artifacts," her lights dimmed. "Some saw them as weapons to be controlled. Others, like my faction, believed they were meant to connect species across the galaxy. The discovery split our people." Their conversation was interrupted by a new alert. Nathan's deep-sea monitoring stations were detecting unusual activity. Multiple submarines were converging on one of the thermal anomalies they'd identified earlier. "They're looking for it too," Lysandra's skin pulsed with urgency. "If they find the artifact first." Nathan pulled up more detailed scans. "Those aren't military submarines. Their signatures are all wrong. The hull compositions match no known Earth alloys." "The shadowy," Lysandra's lights flickered with recognition. "They're the ones who attacked my ship. They must have tracked me here." Nathan watched the unknown vessels move with purpose through his monitoring network. "We need to get to that artifact first," he said. "I have a research submersible. It's small, but it can reach those depths." Lysandra's skin rippled with determination. "The artifact will recognize me as Lumini. I can activate its defenses before they reach it. As they prepared for their underwater mission, Nathan realized how much had changed in just 24 hours. He'd gone from studying bioluminescence to planning a deep-sea expedition with an alien to save Earth from an interstellar conflict. "Why are you helping me?" Lysandra asked as they loaded equipment into the submersible. "You're risking everything on my word alone." Nathan paused, considering. "Because in all my years studying communication between species, I've learned one truth: understanding leads to trust, and trust leads to hope. Right now, we need both." Hidden depths. The research submersible cut through the dark waters of the Norwegian Sea, its powerful lights illuminating the endless blue around them. At these depths, the pressure was immense, but Nathan's vessel had been built for extreme conditions. Beside him, Lysandra's crystalline form provided additional illumination, her skin pulsing with a soft rhythm that seemed to match the ocean's flow. "We're approaching the thermal anomaly," Nathan announced, checking his instruments. 3,000 meters and descending. The enemy vessels are spread out in a search pattern about 10 kilometers to our north. Lysandra's light patterns shifted to a more intense frequency. "The artifact's energy signature is growing stronger. I can feel its resonance with my own bioluminescence." Her entire form seemed to vibrate in harmony with something Nathan couldn't perceive. As they descended deeper, the submersible's external cameras captured remarkable images. Schools of bioluminescent fish swirled around them, their patterns eerily similar to Lysandra's own communications. She watched them with evident fascination. "These creatures," her lights pulsed excitedly, "they're using variations of our ancient language. The artifacts must have influenced their evolution." Nathan adjusted their course, following a deepening trench. That would explain why Earth's deep-sea organisms developed such complex light-based communication systems. They've been receiving signals from the artifact for millions of years. Suddenly, their instruments detected a massive structure ahead. As they approached, their lights revealed an enormous crystalline formation that seemed to grow out of the ocean floor. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that pulsed with a faint, barely perceptible light. "It's beautiful," Nathan breathed, maneuvering the submersible closer. "How do we activate it?" Before Lysandra could respond, their proximity sensors blared a warning. Multiple vessels were approaching rapidly from different directions. The shadowy had found them. "We need to dock quickly," Lysandra's lights flickered urgently. "The artifact has a defense mechanism, but I must make physical contact to activate it." Nathan guided the submersible toward what appeared to be an ancient docking port. As they approached, the crystalline structure responded to Lysandra's presence, patterns of light flowing across its surface like liquid fire. But the shadowy vessels were closing in fast. Through the submersible's cameras, Nathan could see their sleek, dark forms cutting through the water with unnatural speed. Their designs were clearly not of Earth origin, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "They're preparing to fire." Lysandra's warning came just as Nathan detected energy buildups in the approaching vessels. Nathan executed a series of evasive maneuvers, the submersible groaning under the strain. "Can you interface with the artifact from here?" Lysandra pressed her crystalline hands against the submersible's hull, her entire form blazing with light. The artifact responded, its patterns intensifying. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy pulsed through the water, temporarily disrupting all electrical systems. When their systems came back online, Nathan saw that the shadowy vessels had been pushed back, caught in some kind of energy field emanating from the artifact. But their reprieve was brief. The dark ships were already adapting, their hulls shifting to compensate for the artifact's defenses. "There's something you need to know." Lysandra's lights pulsed with what Nathan had learned to recognize as reluctance. "The artifact isn't just a defensive system. It's part of a network that can reshape reality itself. The shadowy don't want to destroy Earth. They want to use your planet's unique properties to control the entire network." Nathan watched as more enemy ships appeared on his sensors. "What unique properties?" "Your oceans," Lysandra explained, her patterns growing more complex. They cover most of your planet's surface and are filled with bioluminescent life that has been influenced by the artifact for millions of years. Earth isn't just another planet with an artifact, it's the key to the entire system. As if to confirm her words, the artifact's glow intensified, and new patterns began emerging across its surface. The ocean around them seemed to come alive, countless bioluminescent organisms responding to its call, creating a vast network of living light. The artifact is awakening. Lysandra's skin rippled with both awe and fear. But we're not the only ones who can control it. The Shadowi have captured enough of our people to understand our bioluminescent interface. We need to establish a stronger connection before they break through. Nathan studied the swirling patterns of light surrounding them, his years of research suddenly falling into place. Maybe we don't need to control it, he said slowly. Maybe we just need to understand it. Your people communicate through light, but so do Earth's ocean creatures. What if we could combine both languages? Lysandra's colors shifted to a curious blue. A hybrid interface? It's never been attempted. There's a first time for everything, Nathan said, already adjusting his communications equipment. And right now, we're out of options. Around them, the shadowy ships pressed closer, their dark forms a stark contrast to the living light show that the ocean had become. The next few minutes would determine not just their fate, but potentially the fate of two civilizations. Nathan only hoped his theory about communication was right, because if it wasn't, they were about to lose everything. Convergence. Nathan's fingers flew across his equipment, integrating his research on marine bioluminescence with Lysandra's natural communication patterns. The shadowy ships had formed a tight perimeter around them, their dark hulls pulsing with ominous energy. The translation matrix is ready, Nathan announced, connecting his systems to both Lysandra and the submersible's external transmitters. It should broadcast a combination of Earth's deep-sea communication patterns and your language. Lysandra's crystalline form brightened. The artifact is responding, but the Shadowi are trying to override our connection. Their captured Lumini are being forced to interface with it. The ocean around them had become a battlefield of light and shadow. Massive schools of bioluminescent creatures swirled through the depths, their patterns growing more organized as they responded to the hybrid signals. The artifact's surface blazed with increasingly complex designs, like a living circuit board made of light. Something's happening, Nathan said, watching his instruments spike. The sea life, they're not just responding to our signals, they're adding to them, creating new patterns I've never seen before. Lysandra's lights pulsed with sudden understanding. Of course, Earth's creatures have been communicating with the artifact for millions of years. They've developed their own dialect of the original language. The water around them began to vibrate with energy as thousands of marine organisms contributed to the growing network of light. Jellyfish pulsed in synchronized patterns. Deep-sea anglerfish adjusted their lures to match the frequency, and countless microscopic organisms added their own tiny lights to the symphony. But the Shadowi weren't retreating. Their ships began emitting a counter-frequency, a darkness that seemed to consume light itself. Where their influence spread, the bioluminescent creatures scattered in confusion. They're trying to disrupt the biological network. Lysandra's patterns showed distress. If they succeed, they'll gain control of the artifact. Nathan studied the readings, noting how the sea life responded to different frequencies. We need to adapt faster than they can. Each species has its own variation of the light language, if we can coordinate them all. He began adjusting the translation matrix, incorporating patterns from different marine species. Lysandra added her own modifications, her knowledge of Lumini communication helping to bridge the gaps between species. Suddenly, one of the Shadowi ships broke formation, firing a concentrated beam of dark energy at their submersible. The blast caught them on the port side, sending them spinning through the water. Warning lights flashed throughout the cabin as several systems went critical. Hull integrity at 60%, the computer announced calmly. Secondary power systems engaged. But even as they struggled to stabilize their vessel, something remarkable was happening. The sea life around them had begun moving with purpose, forming living barriers between the submersible and the shadowy ships. Massive whale sharks appeared from the depths, their bodies glowing with borrowed light. Swarms of smaller creatures filled the gaps, creating a dynamic, ever-shifting shield of bioluminescence. "They're protecting us," Nathan realized, watching the unprecedented display of marine cooperation. The network isn't just about communication, it's about unity. Lysandra's patterns shifted to match the surrounding sea life. The artifact was never meant to be a weapon. It's a bridge between species, a way to share knowledge and understanding across the galaxy. As if responding to this realization, the artifact's energy signature changed. Instead of the defensive pulses it had been emitting, it began producing a more complex pattern, one that incorporated elements from all the life forms present, including the Shadowi's forced Lumini signals. "It's not fighting the Shadowi's interference," Nathan observed. "It's integrating it, creating a new, more complete language." The dark ships faltered as their signals were absorbed and transformed. The captured Lumini aboard began responding to the hybrid language, their own patterns shifting to match the harmony rather than fighting against it. "They're breaking free of the Shadowi's control," Lysandra's lights danced with joy. "The artifact is helping them reclaim their own voice." The ocean around them had become a vast symphony of light and life, each species contributing its own unique patterns to the greater whole. The shadowy ships, their primary weapon now turned into a component of universal communication, began to retreat. Nathan watched them go, still maintaining the hybrid interface. Will they return? Perhaps, Lysandra pulsed thoughtfully. But not as conquerors. The artifact has shown them a different path, one of cooperation rather than control. As the last dark ship disappeared into the depths, Nathan and Lysandra looked out at the transformed ocean around them. The artifact glowed steadily now, its patterns a perfect blend of Earth's marine life, Lumini communication, and even traces of the Shadowi's contribution. "We've done more than save Earth," Lysandra's lights rippled softly. "We've discovered what the artifacts were truly meant to be, not weapons or tools of power, but bridges between all forms of life." Nathan nodded, watching the continuous dance of light and life around their damaged but surviving submersible. They had found something far more valuable than victory. They had found a way forward, a path to understanding that transcended species and stars. The real work was just beginning. New horizons. The next few weeks transformed both Nathan's research station and the scientific community's understanding of life itself. After their encounter in the depths, Nathan and Lysandra worked tirelessly to document and share their discoveries, though carefully, to prevent the knowledge from being weaponized. The Norwegian government, after lengthy negotiations and demonstrations of the peaceful applications of their findings, agreed to establish a joint research facility near the artifact. Scientists from around the world were carefully vetted before being allowed to study the revolutionary biotechnology that merged terrestrial and extraterrestrial communication methods. "Watch this," Nathan said one morning, 6 months after their first encounter. He stood in the new observation dome they'd built underwater, surrounded by holographic displays showing real-time translations of marine life communications. Lysandra floated nearby, her crystalline form refracting the blue light from the ocean outside. He adjusted a few settings on the translation matrix they'd developed. Immediately, the surrounding waters lit up with synchronized patterns of bioluminescence. A pod of whales responded, their songs now accompanied by complex light displays that the facility's instruments could translate into understandable language. "They're sharing migration patterns," Lysandra's skin pulsed with excitement. "And more, they're telling stories about changes in the ocean currents, about new feeding grounds, about—" She paused, her lights flickering with amusement. "About how strange our facility looks to them." Nathan laughed. "Well, we are rather unusual neighbors." Their work had revealed that Earth's marine life had been developing their own complex civilization all along, one based on light and sound that humans had barely begun to understand. The artifact hadn't just been influencing their evolution. It had been learning from them too, creating a vast library of biological and cultural information spanning millions of years. The first Lumini delegation arrives tomorrow, Nathan remarked, checking his tablet. Are you ready? Lysandra's patterns shifted to a more formal configuration. Yes, though it still feels strange to be an ambassador. I came here as a refugee, and now. Now you're bridging two worlds, Nathan finished. Multiple worlds, actually. The shadowy representatives have confirmed their attendance, too. It had taken months of careful negotiation, but the shadowy had eventually reached out. Their society, they revealed, had evolved in the darkness between stars, developing technology to harvest and control light out of necessity. Finding the artifacts had seemed like a way to finally master the force they had always feared. But now, through the hybrid language developed on Earth, they had found a new way to interact with light, not by controlling it, but by becoming part of its dance. Dr. Rhodes, a voice called from the facility's entrance. Dr. Kang, one of the marine biologists, hurried in. You need to see this. The sperm whales we've been communicating with, they're sharing information about deep-sea structures similar to our artifact. They've known about them for generations. Nathan and Lysandro exchanged glances. How many? Nathan asked. At least 7 spread across different oceans. And that's just from one pod's knowledge, if we can compile information from other marine species. We'll need to proceed carefully, Lysandra pulsed. Each discovery needs to be protected, studied with respect for all life forms involved. Nathan nodded, watching a group of luminescent jellyfish drift past the dome. We're not just discovering technology or scientific principles here. We're learning a new way of thinking about intelligence, about communication, about life itself. The artifacts were never meant to be found by just one species. Lysandra's lights danced thoughtfully. They were meant to be discovered when multiple species could come together to understand them. Earth, with its oceans full of bioluminescent life, was the perfect crucible for this convergence. As they stood together in the observation dome, watching the endless dance of light and life in the waters around them, Nathan reflected on how far they'd come from that first night when a strange light fell from the sky. They had faced invasion and conflict, but had found something far more valuable than victory. They had discovered a way to bridge the vast distances between species, between worlds, between ways of thinking. The oceans had always been Earth's last great frontier. Now they had become humanity's first step into a larger community of life, one that stretched across the stars themselves. And it all began with learning to listen not just with their ears or eyes, but with their entire understanding of what communication could be. Ready to help me prepare for tomorrow's delegation? Lysandra pulsed. Nathan smiled, already pulling up the latest translation protocols on his tablet. Always, after all, we're just getting started. Around them, the ocean continued its ancient dance of light and shadow, each pattern telling a story that was only now beginning to be understood. The artifact pulsed steadily in the depths below, no longer a source of conflict but a beacon of connection, promising a future where understanding could bridge any distance, no matter how vast. The real journey was just beginning.